And the question comes from Alo Conson, who wants to know, is the transporter from Star Trek actually a death box? Some might argue that when Captain Kirk's physical... I'm not going to get into the description. Basically, we've seen how the transporter works. And that is a question I've always wanted to deal with. So we're going to end on a little bit of an up note here. Is the transporter in Star Trek a death box, a death experience? And the answer is 100% yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is if you really get into the whole idea of the transporter, it gets to be some very, very profound psychological and philosophical ground, because the transporter is basically, you stand on the pad and you are disintegrated. It's like the disintegration chamber in that episode of Star Trek where the two planets are at war with computers. You walk into a room, you stand there calmly, and you are disintegrated. You are physically destroyed. You are turned into atoms, into plasma. And while this beam is disintegrating you, exceedingly sophisticated sensors are recording the position, presumably, of every atom and every state, every physical, mental, electrical state in your body. That information is encoded and sent someplace where your body is reassembled from different molecules. So even if it's reassembled out of the same molecules, doesn't matter. The process of being transported means that your physical body is disintegrated and another body is built at the other location. And this brings up some very interesting plot holes, for one thing, which I think they addressed in one of the Next Generation shows, the one with Scotty, which was actually, I thought, one of the best things they did. And somebody's talking about Barclay. I know Ensign Barclay, by the way, too. He's a great guy. Gosh, his name just slipped my mind. He's a conservative radio talk show host. I love him. He's fantastic. Only coward in all of Starfleet. He's great. So basically, here's what happens. You walk into that booth and you die. You are reassembled someplace else. Your consciousness goes with you. And this is the point where it gets interesting. So it doesn't feel like you die because your consciousness travels, but your physical body does, in fact, die. And here is the giant, enormous plot hole. And if you've ever played a computer game, you know exactly what I'm about to say. Every time you get into the transporter, it's like a save point. It's like a save point in a game. You're playing a computer game and you can hit save, or you reach a certain level and it saves the game, so that if you die, when you die, you don't go back to the beginning, you go back to the last save point. Dwight Schultz, yes, he's a great guy. And that's what the transponder is. It's a save point for people. So in other words, if Kirk has all of his atoms burned away, turned into information, and that information is stored and then transmitted someplace else to be reassembled, then all you have to do is record the information, and you can reassemble Kirk any way you want to. You can beam him down, basically disintegrate him on board the Enterprise, and then theoretically, you could set the program to create 200 million Kirks, which would be an awesome thing to do, by the way. Every single person in Starfleet is James T. Kirk. There's nobody else, just nothing but James T. Kirk. So yes, as Bone Canoe says, Captain Kirk has died. Oh, it's a shame. He's not going to remember anything that happened during the last 4 days when we regenerate him from his last transporter session. So it is a death box, but it's also an immortality box. Now, presumably, as you get older, the information updates because it's updating your memory, so all of the physical impairments that come with age also go with you. But that's a small price to pay. So if you're Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise, your consciousness has this experience. I beam from the Enterprise, next thing there's a glimmer, and I'm down on the planet with the white ape with the giant unicorn horn. And I don't survive the encounter. The last thing I see is this thing on top of me with bloody claws ripping my face off. And then it gets dark. And then I wake up in the transporter room on the USS Enterprise. I have no memory of beaming down to that planet. I have no memory of the white ape. I have no memory of the mission. All I remember is I stepped into the transporter where I was going to go to Starbase something or other, and now I'm back in the transporter room. And I wake up to find that I had actually lived for 3 or 4 or 5 days prior to transporting last, that I went on this mission and I was killed on this planet, but I have no memory of that. I remember stepping onto the transporter room on the 1st of September and then waking up in the transporter room on September 8th. And in the time that has elapsed, I was killed. The Mugatu, yeah, that's right. Cool. So, your consciousness is what travels. And Soingularity, that's hilarious. Soy boy ad, Soingularity, I got to remember that. George, if that's soy boy is a term used to give to these these girly men that have taken the place of real men in our culture, like pajama boy, too much soy, so soy boy. So that episode, and somebody said Cold Day in Hell when I give the Next Generation credit, but this was a brilliant idea. It's a brilliant plot idea. Unfortunately, it's such a brilliant plot idea that it has made the entire Star Trek universe not make sense. Because in that episode, I didn't really see all of it, but Scotty's on board a ship that's dying. It's out in the middle of nowhere. He's just in the middle of nowhere, and the ship's running out of power, and there's not enough power for life support, not enough food, none of that. So Scotty basically sets things up so that he gets himself dematerialized, and he's kept in the transporter buffer, and then all the ship has to do is just maintain those memory circuits. That's it. And so, 100 years later or whatever it is, Enterprise D comes along. They find this derelict ship. They find out that there's the computer's still active, that there's activity in the transporter buffer. They plug in some jumper cables essentially, and then Scotty emerges, and he's basically spent 100 years in limbo. It's cool. So the transporter is a death machine. It's also an immortality machine, and it's also a photocopy machine. If I step onto the platform and it records all of my information, including all of my consciousness, then it makes me appear somewhere else. It could make 2 of me appear or 5 of me. I could appear in a room and see 10 of me, and we're all having the exact same thought. We're just looking at the room from different perspectives. And all of us are the same guy. We all have the same exact genetics. We have the same memories. There's just 10 of us who are we're not even clones. We're more than clones. We're photocopies. We had the same brothers, same lives. No one of us is the master. It's not like one of us is the source and all the other ones are clones. We're all equally, uniquely the person that stepped onto the platform, but now there's 10 of us, or 100 of us, or 1,000,000 of us. So, anyway. I love those kind of questions just because they're kind of fun. That's going to do it, I think, for this episode. Normally I put the Stratosphere Lounge up before I go to, but I'll do that too. I just need to get the link for the GoFundMe thing. So again, Jim, deepest condolences on your loss, and you certainly have the thoughts and prayers of everybody who's associated with this show, as you can see from the comment section. And again, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. And at this point, I think we're going to shut down the YouTube stream, and then we'll shut down the rest of this stuff. So, whoa. Oh, I thought I set that alarm for 10:30. I set it for 8, but my God, I thought it was 10:30. That would have been a bit of a shock. So now it's time to shut down the various and sundry multiple command centers here. So first thing we'll do is we'll say goodbye to our YouTube fans. Thanks for joining us, and we will hopefully see you next week.